O Forest Park, How Art Thy Hill in St. Louis at the Art Museum. Here is a 17-minute glimpse during the Paintings on Stone exhibition around April 2022. I am not an expert in anything, including art, so don't expect to learn anything useful from this film. I casually shot this footage largely in an attempt to test and refine my skills at indoor low-light shooting, and this is a pretty good place to do just that. Additionally, this is a good example of me going somewhere and not really absorbing the experience personally, as seems to happen when all my focus goes to camera function and staring at the display screen. I may elaborate on that later, but I did manage to notice this exhibit featured many copies of this particular piece on a variety of different stone types, each with minuscule to substantial differences. So we're just going to slam around a bit with the camera at these space-time coordinates, first at the advertised feature before wandering off to other parts of the museum. At the time, the space was a bit more crowded than I'd have liked, and a challenge to keep my camera out of people's faces, so many shots are few, hasty, and limited. This one is my favorite, simply because it is painted on an actual piece of marble from the church it depicts. Obviously, an abridged video tour of the exhibit with a cheap camera is no substitute for going there oneself. Nevertheless, here is an authentic, watchable contribution to the annals of St. Louis amateur documentation. Again, I'm barely noticing the displays while being far more concerned with the filming, for which I made no preparation or plan as per usual. But I'll attempt to elucidate the scene a bit as we go, even though I'm not going to offer an attempt to pronounce the name of this thing. I knew that Minecraft video game was old, but was still surprised to find its roots went back over 90 centuries. Explore Lab might have been a bit of a generous title for this feature, but at least they had this make your own painting on stone section, which, if nothing else, proves to be tons of fun for nuns. Just outside the exhibit was this section bragging about Missouri quarries and production history, and included video of this drone footage of a quarry I'd have been proud to have shot. They had set up this auxiliary gift shop specific to the Paintings on Stone event, separate from the museum's main gift shop downstairs, which we will also peek at a bit later. That's going to do it for footage of the featured exhibit. After grabbing a bite at the cafe and having a glance around the museum's proper gift shop, we're going to see lots of furniture no one is permitted to use anymore, simply because no one ever bothered to throw it away before it managed to catch fire or get tornadoed to the next county. The rest of this film is merely a liminalistic stream of consciousness recording, containing select sections of the routine museum in a semi-linear fashion, while I prattle along about my own art and make further excuses for inept video quality. Feel free to mute the video and accompany it with some preferential music as you deem fit, if you think you might like that better. I mean, I wouldn't want to listen to me ramble on, so I can't imagine why you would. For example, right now I want to whine about the camera light flicker that's totally ruining the liminal ASMR vibe here. I missed my window to get a clean shot of this cafe in the lower level, where the food fare was reasonable. Or maybe just fairly reasonable food. About here is where this video is really going to shift even further from useful tour to mere blatant narcissism. But don't worry, we'll be sure to meet up with Mummy before we go. I don't know where on the spectrum of all humans my level of cinematography knowledge lies. I understand a couple things, I've read up on a few rules and tried them with questionable results, but I still feel like a dolphin trying to replicate Salieri with a theremin. If you are familiar with enough select films I've done, you may observe I prefer to try to maintain the smallest amount of presence in the subject matter, including the areas of promoting them and the platform they've been published on. Since the subject of this film is art I'm not qualified to educate on, I'm going to use this occasion to talk about my own self-declared art. While I'm not confident anybody is going to be interested, I feel it is a fair thing to do for the audience once in a while, just in case. So I'm going to attempt to answer questions about myself, my qualifications, background, and motivations for the film I'm trying to make that I imagine some might have, as well as some context for the YouTube channel housing them, like a sort of pre-recorded, one-sided AMA. That seems to be the easiest way I can manage to succinctly write this, so I'll start off by asking myself a question on your behalf, and then answering it until I digress and lose the plot. Alright, let's hurry up and get through this. First one. Who are you? Survey says, no one of consequence. A reasonably happy St. Louis area peasant without political power or financial influence who just wants to artfully contribute to documenting places, stories, and histories in my little corner of the world for posterity and encouragement. Okay, here's the next contrived made-up question no one actually asked. What are your qualifications? And the answer is none at all. I wouldn't call myself 100% unaccomplished, but I have no bits of framed paper on the wall that I could impress you with. What is your background and training regarding cinematography and using it to document St. Louis and other places of history? Also none at all. I'm just trying to be honest, no overstating here. Perhaps if I do enough of it though, I'll have something to point to one day. Hang on a second, you gotta check this part out. Well, they weren't exaggerating. Let's try that again. Why do you call your documentational films art? It's a cop-out. Calling it art provides relief from the compulsion to provide technical perfection or comprehensive detail. Often I use "in the name of art" to compensate for mistakes even. Saying it is art beforehand prepares the observer to lower their expectations and judgments while attempting to invite them to see it with the emotion that went into its creation. Plus, it's a lot more fun to toy with experimental effects, styles, and edits. Why are your videos classified as entertainment on YouTube when they completely fail to entertain me? Isn't that false advertising? Well, there's no accounting for taste, but it's pretty much the same principle as calling them art. Failed entertainment is still a kind of entertainment. How would you describe the content you produce? I've thought a lot about this, obviously, and I'm afraid the answer is terribly convoluted, but it starts very simple. My work is an unstandardized expression of an individual with his unique viewing angle of the world, fabricated by the cause and effect of his opportunities and experiences. The style is rooted in a variety of influences, capped with the tools and skills of a hobbyist. The subjects can be common or rare, interesting or dull, but almost always a form of original documentation from a unique angle, at least technically and physically. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, so naturally the features center and radiate out from there. My interests are like a well-rounded Venn diagram of topics, including buildings, architecture, towns, history, retail, neighborhoods, transportation, attractions, vintage stuff of all sorts, and more. I try to make my videos on such topics of decent quality and slightly unconventional for posterity and viewer enjoyment. I said try. Other than that, I don't know how to describe it. Watch a bunch of it and you tell me what the heck it is. Why the name Dozenspeed, and what relevance does it have to the content? No relevance, wonder no more. It's a name I came up with for an internet alias many years ago because I had two 6-speed cars. It turned out the name was rather unique on the internet, so I used it for this channel for which I had no idea at the time where it would be going. I rather regret the name now, but with every passing publication, the thought of rebranding becomes more unthinkable, so now I'm stuck with it, I guess. C'est la vie. How much money have you made doing this so far? Brace yourself for this shocking answer. None at all. So far, this is a money pit. I know how I would like to reverse that, but feasibility is yet to be determined. Why are you always putting yourself down? I'm glad I imagined you asked. I don't consider it putting myself down. It's intended as dry, self-deprecating humor that's trying to let the audience know that I'm realistic when it comes to knowing my station as a filmmaker in the real world. I always want to be humble and grateful and clear that I'm not trying to act like I'm much more important or skilled than I am. I try to keep it in check for the most part, except in a video like this of course, but it's just a small ingredient in the recipe. Of course there is some ego in there somewhere driving my filmmaking endeavors, or else I'd have no reason to think it's worth the effort. Why are your publishing so sporadic and random? I'm sure that's the exact wording of this question that went through a person's mind, somewhere, sometime, about someone. That's just the way things go. There are practically no formulas or resources to counter this, so let's just chalk that up to charm. I have to stop and comment on this upcoming shot of the main hall from this cat walkway. Earlier I said I filmed this casually, which was code for without a stabilizer, which gave this scene an interesting, surreal distortion as I crossed to the other side. To finish answering the last question, this channel has been testing the waters nearly half a decade now and hasn't exactly turned into a living as of yet. My creativity ebbs and flows as unpredictably as life itself, so each piece ends up being a fairly individualized process that can only come in its own time. Unfortunately, there is never enough time. Yes, I was trying to demonstrate this interactive exhibit on camera, badly on the tiniest, darkest, dingiest, and illegible example in the whole case. It didn't seem to be working, so I gave up. And now for my final thought. This video is being entered into the portfolio as entry number 199. A couple other half-finished projects were considered to fit this slot before a special video planned for number 200. What started out to be a quick and easy to produce series of clips from a simple museum adventure grew into a formidable and awkward bearing of the soul as an effort to humanize my work and give it relatability or something. I almost always underestimate a video project when I start it. The goalpost is always further than expected, and this video was no exception. It proved to be extraordinarily difficult for me to complete due to its unusually personal nature, as evidenced by the span since the previous published date. I sludged through revision after revision, unable to maintain motivation for the task within the usual limitedly productive windows of time. This is like the third take of the 17th draft. But as usual, I needed to complete this one before I could move on. In this case, to my 200th video milestone project, which I think will also be challenging to complete. Afterwards, I hope to get back to making progress on the backlog. But for now, I'm sick of talking about myself, sick of working on this video, and very happy to get past it. Thank you for listening. The artist resigned to be known as Dozenspeed.